Ever feel like you're just a side character in a story that's not really about you? You know?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's like you're there, but not really in focus. And that's Hagar's story in a nutshell.
Ah, Hagar's.
Yeah.
Tucked away in the book of Genesis.
Right. Just a quick mention in the grand narrative of Abram, who later becomes Abraham.
Right.
But hold on, what if we shift the spotlight? What if we actually paused the story on Abram and put Hagar front and center? What would her story tell us?
Now that's an interesting thought, isn't it?
That's our deep dive today, Genesis chapter 16. We're going deep into Hagar's world, unpacking the power dynamics, the ancient social structures. And while I think we're going to find that this seemingly minor character, she grapples with some pretty universal questions.
It's amazing to think how a story from, millennia ago can still resonate so strongly today. And you're right, we often do kind of zoom past Hagar, but her experiences, they offer such a raw, unfiltered look at the lives of women during those times.
So set the scene for us. We've got Abram and his wife Sarai, who we know later become Abraham and Sarah. And they desperately want a child, an heir, but they're hitting a wall. They haven't been able to have children.
And that's where the societal norms of the time become really, really important to understand. Because having a child, especially a son, an heir, it was everything. And when a wife was unable to conceive, a common solution. Well, a handmaid, like Hagar, was often offered as a kind of surrogate, I guess you could say.
It's easy to forget how different things were back then. So we have Hagar in this incredibly vulnerable position, and, well, as you might expect, she becomes pregnant. Now, you'd think this would be a moment of relief, maybe even joy, but, and this is where it gets interesting, the text tells us that Sarai becomes, and I'm quoting here, despised in Hagar's eyes. What's happening beneath the surface here? What's going on emotionally?
Well, think about it. Put yourself in Hagar's shoes. She's carrying a child, a life, and that's powerful. But it's not a pregnancy celebrated with the same kind of, pure joy and anticipation that we might think of today. I mean, for her, it's a source of tension. This constant reminder that she lacks control over her own life, her own body. And as the text suggests, it really throws the power dynamic between her and Sarai way out of whack.
Yeah, talk about a recipe for conflict. And things do deteriorate. Eventually, Hagar flees out into the wilderness, alone and pregnant. It's a bleak picture. But then she has this encounter that changes everything. She meets an angel.
And not just any angel either. This is Yahweh's angel, God's messenger. The fact that God sends an angel directly to Hagar, that's a big deal. It speaks volumes about the significance of this encounter, of her story. And instead of condemnation, which, let's be honest, is what you might expect in such a situation, this divine messenger offers her comfort. And not just comfort, but also a promise, a huge promise. Hagar's descendants will be too numerous to count.
It's a promise that becomes even more powerful, more meaningful when we know what happens next. Hagar gives birth to a son, Ishmael. Abram names him, yes, but that blessing, that prophecy from the angel, it hangs over everything.
Absolutely. And this isn't just any child. This is the fulfillment of a divine decree. And this is where things get, really interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
Remember, the angel foretold that Ishmael would be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone. That prophecy. Well, it kind of sets the stage for a conflict that we see play out all throughout history. This prophecy is often interpreted as foreshadowing the tensions between the descendants of Ishmael, often linked to Arab peoples, and the descendants of Isaac, who's the son Abram has with Sarah later on.
It's just incredible to me how one story, one woman's experience can have such far-reaching ripples. I mean, we're talking about theological debates that continue to this day, interpretations of this story that have shaped how people view women, power. It even plays into understandings of entire nations and their relationships. That's quite a legacy for one chapter in Genesis.
Right. And that's why it's so important to go beyond the surface of these ancient texts. Hagar's story, it's a testament to resilience. I mean, she flees into the wilderness alone, pregnant, what seems like a completely hopeless situation, yet she perseveres. It also forces us to think about the consequences of the choices made by those in power, how these social structures, they impact individual lives in such profound ways. But maybe the most important thing, the biggest takeaway here, is the simple but crucial act of seeing the humanity in every character, even, and maybe especially, those characters that we tend to relegate to the margins of the story.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Whose stories are we missing? Whose voices aren't we hearing in our own lives, in our own time? I think Hagar's story really challenges us to dig a little deeper, to look beyond the surface, look for those hidden narratives. You never know what you might find.
Thank you for spending this time with us. Toby, Eleanor, and our team of researchers are working hard to produce more episodes. If you value what we're doing here, please consider subscribing and sharing the word. Additionally, our podcast, RSS, and Patreon links can be found below. Listener support is what makes our work possible. Join us next time for another deep dive. God bless.